Wow. Terence Crawford basically says that he has a disagreement with Bob right now, but it's going to get figured out, and he can't bash Bob Arum. Stay tuned. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App. That's $ Boxingego for the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Now, before I get started, sign up for ESPN Plus using my link. The link is in the description box of all of my videos. It does help the channel when you guys click on that link. ESPN Plus, ton of original content, docuseries, documentaries, archive UFC and boxing fights for your viewing needs. You can get ESPN Plus as a standalone app. It's $5.99 a month. Or you can get the bundle if you like more content. ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all three apps for one low price of $12.99. I personally have all three, and I think it's a good value for the money. Let's get it. Terence Crawford. He did an interview with SiriusXM. This is a quote from Terence Bud Crawford. Quote, "We may have a disagreement right now, but we're going to get it figured out. I can't bash Bob Arum when I know deep down in my heart that Bob Arum is really a good dude, and he really did try everything to get these fights I was asking for." End quote. You know, I tell you guys all the time on my channel, you know, smash the like button, but I don't really get into the sides game. I don't have a side, you know, I just tell my side, I guess you could say, my personal opinions on this channel. And I must tell you, Terence Crawford, he's kind of on his own. A lot of what he's saying, I cannot relate to. I cannot see the logic. I can't see the science or the rationale of thinking based on what he's put out there. You know, some cryptic tweets or tweets going at fans, the interviews, maybe he hasn't articulated it well enough for me to understand. But as of me recording this video, I don't understand. Now, here's why. Bob Arum, in my opinion, had kind of crossed the line. You have a black fighter, African-American fighter, Terence Crawford, and he has a white promoter, a Jewish promoter, in Bob Arum, who basically said, I am not going to continue losing money on Terence Crawford. It's a business. I don't care if him and his team is mad. It is what it is. I could have bought a house in Beverly Hills, I think he said, for the amount of money that I've lost on Terence Crawford's fights. I thought that was overkill. I thought that was out of pocket. And I thought Crawford was owed an apology. You have other white males in combat sports who agree with me in the form of Dana White, UFC president, Eddie Hearn. Now, I don't always agree with either one of them. Dana White, you know, some of his political views or past views on a fighter, John Jones, Tyron Woodley, or whatever, that's cool. Same thing with Eddie Hearn, we know. But in the case of Crawford being disrespected and it being the promoter's job to promote the fight, this isolated, I definitely agree with what they're saying. In fact, I said it before they even went public with their standpoints or whatever. So it's shocking that Terence Crawford is so lackadaisical and has seemingly taken the least amount of offense to the comments. But you have people like Dana White, who does, you know, full disclosure, he doesn't really get along with Bob Arum. He said, I can't stand that guy, effing hate that guy, he's a POS, stuff like that. And then you have a guy like Eddie Hearn. You could say, oh, he's trying to scoop Terence Crawford. But I think the comments, despite what their intentions for saying them, you have to admit that, you know, the comments were pretty foul. And Terence Crawford is saying, we may have a disagreement right now, but we're going to get it figured out. I can't bash Bob Arum when I know deep down in my heart that Bob really is a good dude and he really did everything to try to get those fights I was asking for. So I'm not here to bash Bob Arum, like Top Rank. To be honest, it's getting to the point where I don't even care. If Crawford doesn't care, then it becomes harder and harder for me to care. Bob Arum has continually said his piece, unfiltered, and didn't care who was offended by it. I can actually respect that because he's cutthroat. Terence Crawford, his behavior, I respect him as a fighter, but for him to be so nonchalant at this, I don't know. A lot of the comments he's saying, I just don't know. So, you know, I get Terence Crawford. He's a hell of a competitor. He's stubborn. He has his own way of thinking and stuff. But when your own family, your blood, and I'm not saying family's always right. You know, I'm a very objective, realistic person. But when your own blood and family is on Twitter, you know, kind of ranting on your behalf and say, hey, I hope my brother don't get mad, but I had to speak my piece. You know, guys like Dana White, who really have nothing to do with Crawford's career, is admonishing these comments. Guys like Eddie Hearn, even Crawford himself. He did an interview with Ak and Barack, and you guys could catch that floating on the internet. And he says if Bob Arum really feels like that and feels like I'm not an asset to his company, then he could just release me right now. So it's really a weird message from Crawford, if I'm being real, that he seemed offended on that Ak and Barack interview. You know, if I'm just listening to it, he said, you know, release me then. You know, if you don't respect what I'm bringing to the table and you just losing money on me, release me. But then at the end of the day, after saying release me, or in the same interview, because this was SiriusXM, so it might have been the same interview, he says, quote, we may have a disagreement right now, but we're going to get it figured out. I can't bash Bob Arum when I know deep down in my heart Bob Arum really is a good dude. Bro, Terence Crawford may just be too loyal for his own good. Even if you're not offended by the Bob Arum comments, which it sounded like he was until this quote. You know, it sounded like he was. I don't see how you, as a man, I don't really see how you wouldn't be, but whatever. The bottom line is Terence Crawford is not getting the fights from his business dealing that would make him what he is expected to be. You see what I'm saying? All the kids are in another playground with the PBC, and for whatever reason, it seems like Crawford is so stubborn and dead set in his own way of thinking, where at age 33 or whatever age he is, he could let some of these good fights go by. He seemingly has more words, like in the, just explain the logic, if you guys can, in the comment section. Your promoter just basically says you're a lost leader and I keep losing money on your fights. But then Errol Spence, in an unrelated interview with The Athletic, the same, you know, company that did the Bob Arum interview, where he's copping a squad on you and your brand and saying, I lose money on you. Errol Spence did an unrelated interview and he was asked about a potential future fight with Terence Crawford. And he says, yeah, I'll fight him. I'm down. You know, I got Danny Garcia first, but I should get the lion's share of money, 60-40. Now I'll get ready to play the clip so you guys can hear. Terence Crawford said he wasn't going for that. He says 60-40. If that's the case, no sorry, Bob, count me out, because unless I'm getting 60 and Errol Spence is getting 40, I've done more than in my career. So if it ain't 50-50 basically, or 60-40 in favor of me, then I'm not trying to hear it and the fight won't happen. So the mindset of Crawford is really at this point befuddling me. I don't understand his angle, and you know, that's cool. To each his own. It's not for me. He's from a rural area, an industrial area like Omaha. I'm from California. It's a bigger city. Different strokes for different folks. But here's what Terence Crawford had to say verbatim.
I already said I want Spence.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But that fight not gonna happen because he already talking a 60-40 deal. And if it ain't 60-40 in my favor, then that fight is not gonna happen. Period.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't accomplish way more than he accomplished in his little career. You know what I mean? So
little career.
I don't care. I really, like I told people, I really don't care if that fight happened or not, no more. I used to be all up on that fight, you know what I mean? But
so to me, it sounds like Terence Crawford is totally dejected, and because his promoter and his team or situation hasn't been able to facilitate it, he sounds like he's a little bit just like, all right, whatever. And that's the worst thing to be as a fighter is complacent to me. And in terms of being in shape and being a competitor, fighting other guys, he doesn't seem complacent in that, but his business savvy seems real complacent. He just told you, unless it's 60-40 for me, then I ain't trying to hear it. That's a percentage. You know, he just immediately shut it down. And I still have questions of why Crawford cares more about Errol Spence, who's fighting Danny Garcia in a couple weeks. You care more about his split than really addressing Bob Arum, who disrespected you. In my opinion, Errol Spence didn't disrespect Terence Crawford in that interview, right? He said Crawford is a great fighter. I think, you know, my brand speaks for itself. The proof is in the pudding. So I deserve the lion's share of the money. But he didn't disrespect Crawford. But you have a promoter who's been working with you and is your ally. Errol Spence is not necessarily your ally. Y'all are brothers in boxing. You know, he's your peer, but he doesn't work on the same side of the street as you. He's not assigned to your promotion. He don't train in your gym. He's not from Omaha. But someone that's on your very own team, Bob Arum, he in my opinion, did you cold-blooded. And Crawford sounds more like he's putting more emphasis and energy into some stuff Errol Spence said rather than the distasteful things that Arum said. It's really weird to me.
I didn't accomplish way more than he accomplished in his little career. You know what I mean? So
little career.
I don't care. I really, like I told people, I really don't care if that fight happened or not, no more. I used to be all up on that fight. You know what I mean? But the way things have been going these last couple of years, it just rubbed off on me. I don't care about it no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we fight, we fight. If we don't, we don't. I'm not the one that is the reason why it didn't happen. And I'm not the one that they say, oh, well, you need Spence. Why would I need Spence? Why?
And Terence Crawford said, why would I need Spence? But he's the one calling him out. Like, I'm just not understanding his angle, you know, of the argument. He says, why would I need Spence? I mean, because he's a welterweight with 2 belts and you want to show that you're the best. Like, I mean, it sounds like, I don't know, like almost like Crawford has been brainwashed. Like, this is like simple arithmetic. If you don't want someone, why call them out? He said, I never said nothing about his career can't go on without Spence, but if you're in the division and there are people who believe Spence is the number 1 guy and would beat you, and he has 2 belts, what do you mean, why would I need Spence? I mean, he has the belts. You just became like, so that's what I'm saying. The business has maybe the lack of getting the names he wants has Crawford sounding complacent and almost confused. Again, your last division, which you're saying you're the A side over Errol Spence for, because you've accomplished more, like being undisputed. I'm assuming that was one of the milestones that makes Crawford say this. Why wouldn't you want to be undisputed in this division? The only way to do that is to fight 2 remaining guys, one of which is Errol Spence, who has 2 belts and is perceived as the best. The other guy is Manny Pacquiao, who you couldn't get either one of them. And even though Pacquiao was signed to Top Rank, I don't know, man. I really don't know. But we will continue.
A lot of people say I need Spence. I don't need Spence. The fans want Spence.
But I haven't heard that one, that you need him. I mean, I just think that's a great fight for both of y'all.
That's all I hear. That's all I hear. A lot of people.
What you say?
People be like, he needs Spence. A lot of people be like, he needs Spence. I don't need Spence. You know what I mean? What have Spence accomplished in his career that I haven't?
Bud just said, what has Spence accomplished in his career that I haven't? He's done better pay-per-view numbers than you. This is all provable stuff. He did 50,000 with Mikey Garcia. To my knowledge, I don't think Crawford has had those successes. So I struggle to understand the angle in Crawford's logic. You know, it's just like some stuff you and your team or Bernie or Bomac or something kind of went over, but to the outside world, I don't know if it's making the same sense. But we shall continue.
How important at this point in your career, Bud, is the Errol Spence fight? Like legacy fights.
It's not that important. I keep telling everybody it's not that important. You know what I mean? Like I don't need Errol Spence for my legacy. I don't know why people trying to make it seem like I need Errol Spence. He need me. I don't need him.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I can't relate to what Crawford's saying. He's telling us that a guy who has 2 belts and a full playground of competition, Pacquiao, I believe, has one more fight with PBC. Sean Porter rematches there for Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, you guys, all these names. And he's saying that him being on a lone island with Top Rank, Errol somehow needs him. But the proof is in the pudding, like Errol said. These are Spence's numbers without you. Spence versus Mikey Garcia, 360,000 pay-per-view buys. Dan Raphael, ESPN, March 27, 2019. Errol Spence, Sean Porter is tracking the same numbers, 350K pay-per-view buys. Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Fox Countdown show. So this was not even the actual fight. This was a preview show, like, 24/7 All Access. It drew over 500,000, 604,000 viewers. Meanwhile, your own promoter is throwing you under the bus and has been for a while. ESPN. Here's a notes from Dan Raphael, who doesn't even work for ESPN. So that's how you know it's an older article. Notes. Bob Arum tells ESPN he says he lost about 100,000 on Terence Crawford versus Victor Postal. And he's fast forward to the future, he's still saying this. He said your last 3 fights. So Victor Postal wasn't your last 3 fights, because that was your fight at 140, a unification. Your last 3 fights would have been Kell Brook, it would have been Mean Machine, Amir Khan, and Jose Benavidez, then I think Jeff Horn. So he says your last 3 fights you've lost him money. In the past, he told the world you lost him money. How on earth does Errol Spence need you? Like you got to make it make sense, bro. And then this, he says, I can't bash Bob Arum, but then Errol Spence, who didn't even bash you, offers 60-40. You said no way, and we know that'll be a fight that people want to see. That's why they keep asking. And you're saying you don't need him. I just don't understand this. He says I can't bash Bob Arum when I know deep down in my heart that Bob Arum is a good dude. What? This sounds like a domestic violence wife, and I'm not saying this to be funny. I'm saying it sounds like somebody who they're dead set in their ways, and even though they know what's happening to them is wrong, they stay in it. Like the R. Kelly victims or something. You see what I'm saying? Like the family members of the R. Kelly victims, they were trying to get their kids back. I watched the whole documentary, and it was like Stockholm syndrome, and R. Kelly had convinced them that only he can love them, and they wouldn't be nothing if they try to leave the house that he had, and he was torturing them and stuff like that. It just sounds weird. He says I can't bash Bob Arum because I know deep down in his heart that Bob really is a good dude. He could be a good dude, but that business and loyalty and personal relationships, that's all different things. You could be friends with Bob Arum or go golfing with him or something like that. You're not getting the fights that you said you wanted, and now he's telling the world he don't even care because of the last few years. So I know Crawford's a beast, but I don't know if he's checked out because the business hasn't worked in favor of him. He said he's a good dude, Arum's a good dude, and he really did try everything to get these fights I was asking for. Trying ain't that ain't it. Like, you know what I'm saying? You could try. I could try to dunk. Either I dunked or I didn't dunk. You see what I'm saying? Either I could touch rim or I can't, you know? And it's funny that Bob Arum, and like I said, I respect Bob Arum for his tenacity in the game. Because if he got these little moves and people can't see the light and it works for him and he can say cutthroat things, and then Terence Crawford can seemingly be mad and say, release me, and then come back and say he's a good dude and he really tried to get these fights. Like I said, trying doesn't really equate to anything. There's a lot of things you could try. You could try sushi and not like it and never want to eat it again. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you could try to dunk, try to touch the rim, but either you touched the rim, either you dunked or you didn't. You know what I'm saying? These are all different things. You can try to ask a girl to prom or ask her on a date, but she could shut you down and say no. So you tried, but at the end of the day, it's also about success. To me, if you're Terence Crawford, he's been under promoted, and he hasn't been promoted like Fury and Lomachenko. And these responses or lack of responses, I hope he has a trick up his sleeve, like he's trying to catch people by surprise or something. But I can only go off of what he's saying. He seems a lot more nonchalant. He would never let Keith Thurman. He would never let Manny Pacquiao. He would never let Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Errol Spence do a bunch of interviews and trash his brand without having a word to say. But when it comes to Bob Arum, he seems like, it's just Bob. He's a good dude. So, you know, I don't know if he's complacent with his situation or he's been talked that I don't know. You got to talk to Crawford on this, but as far as my take and my taste, I don't understand where he's coming from. 60-40, how? You know, I just went over a few of the stats. Errol Spence is doing, and he's about to fight Danny Garcia. He just did his media day today. He's already doing numbers like 350, 360,000. That's more than both Crawford. Crawford's been set up to fail. Victor Postal did 50, 60,000, and the Amir Khan numbers never came out, but the reports suggested they were 96, 100,000. So in one pay-per-view, and Errol Spence is about to go on his third pay-per-view, Errol Spence has done double both of Crawford's pay-per-views, and they can't put Crawford back on pay-per-view without a solid name. ESPN didn't want to put him on the pound-for-pound list up until recently after Lomachenko lost. They told him to his face, and Andre Ward, two guys, well, ESPN picked up Andre Ward, but he was an active fighter at that time, but two guys who would later appear on ESPN, Teddy Atlas told them both to their face that Lomachenko is better. I made videos about all this. And like I said, if Terence Crawford likes it, then I love it. Because, you know, to each his own. We all have our own personal opinion. I'm not being disrespectful. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. I just, look, I told you. I did videos about this. Teddy Atlas told you to your face Lomachenko, who was 8-1, is better than you. Look, this was Teddy's top 5. I told you. So, look, Loma was 9-1. And Andre Ward and Terence Crawford were 32-0 apiece with 16 and 23 knockouts. And they said this guy with a 9-1 record was better than you. Crazy. And even though they had way more fights. Look, way more fights. And like I said, if Crawford's cool with it and Bob Arum's a good dude and he loves his situation, then great. But guys like Dana White, myself, Eddie Hearn, boxing fans I've seen are all saying that it was disrespectful what he's saying. So, you know, personal preference. I know I can't have no one talk to me like that. You know, Floyd Mayweather tried to give young fighters the game and said he had to get out of his top ranked contract to really make it and start seeing the real checks and 8-9 figures plus. But, you know, Bud seems like he's happy getting whatever money and the level of fights that he wants, that he's been getting. So keep doing it. Let me know how I did in this video. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. But he says we will work. Let me read it again. I don't want to misquote people on this. It's too important. We may have a disagreement right now, but we're going to get it figured out. I can't bash Bob Arum when I know deep down in my heart that Bob Arum is really a good dude and he really did everything to get these fights I was asking for. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.